It was the first superior of the Holy Rosary Convent in New York who predicted on her deathbed that a peninsula in the West will be dotted white with Dominican foundations. The rest, as they say, is history. Catholic Central began as a high school for boys as early as 1906 under the direction of the Sisters of Charity. This was the first in any diocese in the United States. The girls' section of the high school was staffed by the Dominicans.
At first there was not a building for the girls. The girls were sent to Sacred Heart Academy, which was on the parking lot next to the public library.
In 1914, the Sisters of Charity withdrew from teaching the boys and were succeeded by the Dominicans. But it was not until 1931 that the boys and girls were united into the Catholic Central that we know today.
We have 3 sisters who were at Catholic Central for a long time. Sister Robert Ann, and she was there for 44 years. Sister Damien, she taught there 46 years. And Sister Casimir taught there 53 years. She started in 1906.
Well, there was a time, of course, when the majority of faculty were sisters. And so sisters were everywhere, and they were in many different disciplines. They were also, running the business office and the bookstore and about anything that you could need.
My parents said to my sister and to me, it's good to be either a nurse or a teacher, because if your husband dies, you have something to fall back on. So I knew that in most cases the Dominican sisters were teachers. So when I came, I just assumed that I was going to be a teacher.
When they first put in Title IX, I had several of the girls that wanted to have a 9th grade basketball team. And they looked at all the women faculty and figured I was the only one that could run up and down the floor. And so because of that, they asked me if I'd coach.
I taught religion, and I always felt I got more religion taught through English than I did because religion is boring to a sophomore and freshman. It's so boring. I said, if Jesus walked in here and worked a miracle for you, you'd say, oh, it's boring.
Even in the early days, the sisters believed that learning should extend beyond the classroom, and that holds true today.
One of the things that the sisters did at that time was to make sure that there was enough presence to make sure that people studied and studied to learn, not just to pass in homework and not just to pass tests, but to basically go through and really learn for the spirit of learning and how the learning is going to affect your entire life.
They learn a lot about life in the neighborhood. We could look out the windows over here and we could see God's Kitchen, the people lined up around the corner for God's Kitchen. So anyway, the students learn a lot more than they just learn in books if they go to Catholic Central.
Throughout history, dedicated priests and lay people worked side by side with the Dominicans. Today, they carry on the work of the sisters, whose impact is still apparent.
You could speak to any current or former faculty member would say, I learned something about how to teach, how to center myself, and I also taught them, because we too are learners. If we did our job right, we formed a lot of teachers and administrators and support personnel who were educated by us who are now passing on the message. And so that's a generational impact, and once it happens, it ripples out.
What a fantastic evening tonight to really come together as a community and celebrate the fantastic contributions of the Dominican Sisters. These sisters, when I go back in our family's history, my mom was educated at Dominican High, my brothers and I at Catholic Central, and now our nieces and nephews. And when I think about the contributions of the Dominicans, there are many things that we can point to. I mean, personally in my own life, certainly there was the education and the long hours of whether it was in Sister Peter Verona's Latin class or Sister Robert Ann's calculus class or Sister Irene Mary's English class. Those were all very important in the development of young men and women. When I step back and actually think about what made the difference of that time with the Dominicans, what comes to mind is the the tangibles that a lot of times we think are the intangibles. And what I mean by that is really a point of view that, you know, we have a responsibility to our communities and the greater good. What comes to mind is that teaching us accountability. What comes to mind is reminding us of self-awareness. And a lot of those long, long hours in the classroom and a lot of those long, long hours at night doing homework really come down to this, is really what the Dominicans have taught our family over time, beginning with my mom, my brothers and I, and now our nieces and nephews, is really, it's an organization that is about serving the greater good. An organization that teaches us to be selfless. And an organization that you certainly don't want to talk back. So have a great gala tonight. I wish I could be with you. And I'm especially appreciative of my favorite Dominican, Sister Robert Ann. Good night.